Hey guys, Jengar here. Welcome to today's realistic review in which we are taking a look at the American F6F-5 Hellcat sitting at 3.3 battle rating. The Hellcat, the upgrade from the Wildcats, better engine, new design, all nice and shiny. This plane is quite a bit more powerful than the Wildcat, but it is still not quite competitive, at least not in War Thunder. And in the past I've heard people say that this is not quite the plane that was the plane in reality, but this is true for many designs in War Thunder. Unfortunately, not quite there, and it's definitely not all planes. They get many planes right, but they also get planes wrong, and the Hellcat seems to be a little bit in that category because it doesn't seem to have the double climb rate that the Wildcat had, much better in the vertical and stuff like that. It's still a bad climber. She doesn't do great in the vertical, although it's not as bad as the Wildcat, so it is definitely an improvement. But you don't want to go into the vertical against a 109, for example. Usually they out energy fight you with ease, and this is in War Thunder. This plane should be used as a boom and zoomer, and you have to be quite careful when you're energy fighting because the climb rate in this plane is not great. She's not fantastic in the vertical, and she doesn't turn very well either, so it's not a very forgiving plane when it comes to that. You need to be strict in your boom and zooming, you need to be wise in your maneuvers, you need to have good situational awareness, and then you can use this machine as it's supposed to be used and have success with it. Now, the stealth belt that I used in this video has a lot of incendiary shells in there, so it's quite nice when it comes to fires. She's a fire starter. Anyway, the maximum speed in this plane at sea level without WEP is 536 kilometers an hour, and with WEP 565. At 4,500 meters you still go up to 463 without WEP and 487 with, and finally at 6,500 meters you can take it to 428 without WEP and 453 with WEP. Now that is quite functional war emergency power, but this plane is slower in all altitudes than many of the other planes that we reviewed lately. For example, the P-39s, the Corsairs, the P-51, they're all faster than this plane. They're pretty much all more maneuverable. Most of them are just as sturdy, so there is precious little reason why you should fly out the Hellcats, except maybe for experiencing the plane and getting a taste of it and stuff like that, which is fine of course, but it is not very special, or it's not highly competitive in the American line with the other planes you can fly there. And it is also limited compared to other planes, unfortunately. The planes that you face, and you will often not be the highest plane, so this plane definitely needs extensive side climbing. Now the speeds that I mentioned are in indicated airspeed without Mach. The top speed in a dive is 763 before she redlines and 835 before she rips apart. This is not spectacular either, and again also not competitive to the other American models that are available at this battle rating. Control stiffening in this plane is actually quite good. In the lower ends of the dive you only start to get some compression in the ailerons, with 650 being the first stick where you really notice something, and then 750 almost close to the red line for the second one. That is extremely late, so the handling in the dive in this plane is quite good. Only the maximum speeds you can handle in a dive are not quite as good as some of the other planes, so you have to pull out of those dives earlier than some of the other American planes that you can fly. The stall speed in this plane is 115 kilometers an hour, which is alright, nothing to complain about. The plane has good firepower with 6 12.7 mm M2 Browning machine guns, or 50 cals, with 400 rounds per gun. That ammo load is great as well, and this plane is versatile. It has the option to equip 2 1,000-pound bombs, 2 Tiny Tims, 6 HVAR rockets, a combination of 2 1,000-pound bombs with 6 HVAR rockets, and you can also equip a torpedo. So this plane can actually be taken into naval, which is, it's a naval plane, so that's logical, that's nice. And ground battles, it can be taken in there as well, with 6 HVAR rockets and 2 1,000-pound bombs. I can imagine that this plane can be quite lethal there. And then being the, you know, the jack of all trades, decent at everything and not good at anything else, not excelling in anything, a kind of plane with 650 cals and a lot of ammo can be quite nice in ground RB as well. You being able to pick off quite a few of the enemy ground pounders can be quite interesting there as well, I would assume. Now the belts, the universal belt has the later belts, basically the later shell composition with 3 times API rounds, then a tracer and an incendiary. The ground belt has a tracer shell, then 3 times armor piercing, and then an API and an incendiary shell. And the tracers run with 5 times the tracer shell and 1 API shell. And then finally the stealth belt has an armor piercing, 2 times armor piercing incendiary, and then 2 times incendiary. I use the stealth this time because I am definitely getting used to the 50 cals and the surprise factor is always nice, but any of these 4 belts are viable. You can use them for their intended purposes. The default belt is not usable in this plane, though it has ball ammunition and you definitely want to stay away from that. So preferably try to research the belts early. Now, for acceleration in this plane, in a straight line it's decent. In a dive it's good, especially when you give her a little bit to wind up with the weight coming in. Energy retention is very good in the horizontal and good in the vertical when you have top speed and you can use web for a little bit. Otherwise, in any other situation into the vertical, she is average at best. Now the climb rate is below average for sure. It does overheat as well, so you cannot web all the time when you don't use mech. I don't know how it is with mech. Let me know if it's any better. For some planes it is a little better, for other planes it's not. Turn time is average, slightly above average with flaps, doesn't make too much of a difference. The flaps rip off at around 560 kilometers an hour, which is actually quite good. That is quicker than the plane can run in a straight line at any altitude, even with web. And only in the later parts of the dive you have to be careful with flaps. So yeah, the flaps are very usable, but they only help a little bit, so that's not too much of an advantage. The roll rate is average at best as well. Overall maneuverability is average. The overheating in this plane is present, especially with web. With lots of web usage she does overheat, and even though it doesn't cool off at 100% very easy, if you go to 96% for a little bit, it does cool off quite nicely, and so it's manageable for me. I didn't have too much problems with the overheating in this plane, so that is nice to have. Durability is great. This plane can take a lot of damage. It can really soak damage. Of course any plane can be destroyed, but this plane is quite sturdy. Repair cost in the plane is 1,758 Silver Lions, which is very good. It's very low at this battle rating. I think that's fair, because there's very little reason to fly this plane. If you look at the American line alone and what other planes are there at 3.3 battle rating, this plane is definitely not your first pick, not even close. And yeah, so trying to lure people in with low repair costs and with rewards would be nice, but let's talk about rewards. This plane has a 284% research point modifier and a 150% Silver Lion modifier. Now the research point modifier is above average, but the Silver Lion modifier is atrocious. So this is a little bit better than average research point earner, but so a researcher for your tree, a grinder. But the research, the Silver Lion, sorry, the Silver Lion rewards in this plane are not that fantastic. So it's not a great earner of in-game money, which is unfortunate because there is precious little reason anyway to fly this plane, and it's not that much better of a research point earner than some of the other planes. So no, this is not a great pick, even in rewards, and that repair cost being 800 less than, for example, the Corsair, it doesn't really make that much of a difference anyway. You will earn much more, and less than 1,000 difference. It just doesn't. It's not the reason why you should let the Corsair, the 1D, lie around and fly this plane instead. That's just not gonna make that decision based on a little bit less repair cost, unfortunately. So no, it should be something in the rewards as well then, if you want to make this plane more attractive to people. She is nice as a boom and zoomer when you get to the altitude, and it does take 6, 7, 8 minutes, that depends on the map, you know, where this plane can take the time to side climb and you know, stay out of the initial merge between the two teams and then go in as the highest plane. This plane can be a dominating plane in that sense, but it takes time, and but you're used to it in the Americans. I mean, I have to say that there's most of their planes do require this side climbing, but this one does require it a little bit in the extreme. It's one of the worst climbers in the American fighter line, and yeah, maybe because it's a naval plane, it's a little bit heavier, although the Corsairs have that as well. The Corsairs are not much better though in climb rate, so there is that, but overall Corsairs are much better flyers than this plane, that's for sure. So let's check this scoreboard. We've got Terror of the Sky, Bulletproof, 20,000 Silver Lions, and almost 5,000 research points. Oh, we got a best squad wager as well, not done. Well, anyway, I'll see you in the conclusion. Hey guys, so here we are after the match. The Hellcats, man. I'm mixed with this plane because it's an iconic plane. I read a lot about it when I was a kid, and all the adventures that some of the pilots had in this thing, and how it changed the game for the Americans. You know, this plane being much better than the Wildcats, and I just don't feel that difference in War Thunder, unfortunately, between the Wildcats and the Hellcats. They stay a little bit in the same line, not great climb rate, and it doesn't. The extra power doesn't seem to be quite there in War Thunder compared to the Wildcats. And in reality, the Japanese pilots suddenly were facing these planes, and they were used to the Wildcats, so they took these Hellcats up into the vertical, and oh my god, the Hellcats basically destroyed them, staying into the vertical much longer than the Wildcats. And yeah, I don't feel that too much basically in War Thunder. It is better for sure, and then you can argue about, I mean, the competition, man. You've got a King Cobra there, a 3.3 battle rating. You've got the fantastic Corsair, the 1D at 3.3. You have in rank 2 you have the P-51. You have several other planes. You have the C-10 Mustang at 3.7. There's so much other things you can fly at this battle rating for the Americans that is better than this Hellcat, that it is almost a shame that they didn't put it at 3.0 or something, just to make it a little bit more interesting. Also could give it a little bit more rewards and stuff like that, just to make it a little bit more appealing, because this is an iconic plane, and I believe in War Thunder it's a little bit on the wayside, a little bit forgotten or ignored, because there's just too much else to fly at this battle rating that is so much better. But anyway, the Hellcats can still be fun. You just need to take them to a place where they can be a boom and zoomer and function from there, and with a good belt, with the incendiary shells, you can get a lot of fire starters and have fun in this plane, because there is that. It is an ideal plane to learn boom and zooming in, and learn the discipline required for boom and zooming, because if you make a mistake in this plane, she doesn't easily forgive it, even though she is great at catching some damage. She doesn't just fall out of the sky, but she's not great as a turn fighter. She's not the best energy fighter. You cannot transition between the roles that easily in this plane and perform and expect to perform against the opposition, because much of the opposition is just better than this plane. Keep that in mind, but that also makes it a great learning plane, because if you make a mistake, you're usually dead. and that's a hard school, but it is a good school. Hard schools can be good schools in that sense, because you do learn to not make those mistakes. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, become part of this community. If you are already a subscriber, don't forget to like the video, do leave me a comment, and if you really feel like helping out today, make sure to share the video with your friends and let them know about the channel.